This is the RPM Podcast, starring Eric Brennan,
created solely to make women cry,
Sam Ballard Jr.,
Therapy, lobotomy, Jesus, mix it all in.
Scott Riggleman,
fungus-faced toad sucker, yellow-bellied gutless slug,
and Josh Matthews.
Dude, I'm such a jerk. It's ridiculous.
Oh, it is so good to be back. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the RPM Podcast. I'm Eric Brennan, and we got a full house here in the Matthews Family Studios. But first, we want to say hello to our buddy in the Edge of Divorce Motorsports Studios, Scott Riggleman. How you doing, Scott?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good. And we got
Edge of Divorce Motorsports Studios, sponsored by Eric Brennan.
Provided by Eric Brennan.
There's I hear irony ringing. Sam Ballard Jr. and Nick Rendo, better late than never. Nick, good to have you back.
My God, I can't believe the four of us are in the studio and with right over here.
And Sam.
Wait, you forget his name?
No.
you like stuttered like,
No.
It's
How can I
Scott.
forget his name when we were driving down the parkway and literally saw his bumper sticker?
Fair enough.
Sam, back home from the University of North Carolina. How's it going?
Spring break.
And we're partying hard with snow on the way. You're on the Jersey Shore, and of course,
It's
Josh
currently a
Matthews
state of
setting everything up.
emergency.
Josh, how you doing?
Breathing.
Typical Josh answer. Oh, my goodness. Well, it's good to be back. I missed it here.
It's been like 6 months.
So I know.
It's been like
Longer.
9 months.
I know.
Longer.
That's like a pregnancy, Eric Brennan.
Not
I
even
know.
a state of
and
emergency
you know
can
what
stop
got
this.
me here? I watched the Cup race from Vegas on Sunday, and I was so enthused,
Pissed?
so energetic,
Oh.
and so hyped. I just couldn't wait to get here to talk about it. So I figured that's what we do. We would talk about the Cup race first. Now, Kevin Harvick got himself another win, and, you know, it's funny. We'll talk about the roof thing in a moment, but I want to talk about the race as a whole.
Raise the roof.
Oh, my goodness.
The roof is on fire.
Scott, I want to go to you first because you're a longtime NASCAR fan. You kind of see what the product has developed. I'll quote, what is that movie from? Are You Not Entertained? Were you entertained by the Cup race on Sunday at all?
You know what? I like I told you guys before, I watch people race around cones in a parking lot. You know what? Every race is different. Was it exciting side-by-side racing? Was it a last lap pass for a win? No, it wasn't. But you know the enjoyment I got out of it was Kevin Harvick did have a dominant car. Kevin Harvick had every right to win that race, and by me watching that, I just start watching the race in a different way. I'm like, all right, what can go wrong now for Kevin Harvick? What can they screw up? Are they going to be able to finish what they started? And that was the drama for me. I wanted to see if Kevin could finish what he started, and he did. So congratulations to him and his team. I mean, it wasn't a super exciting race, but I still enjoyed it. It was still a race. It was still a good race, and it was good to see Kevin's team come with such a strong car and able to win.
And that is a good point because remember that's what happened to Harvick in Atlanta for 17 years, where he year after year after year he would roll up there with one of the best cars and not be able to close the deal. He finally did last week, and then he backed it up with the win in Vegas this week. And there's a lot of talk about what we saw, really something that was kind of exposed on the NASCAR on Reddit Twitter handle or on the Reddit forum that they have there, where it looks as though right on the base of the roof and the back window looked as though there was a little bit of an indentation, perhaps on both sides of the back of Harvick's car. Not sure if that gives an aerodynamic advantage or not. His crew chief, Rodney Childers, gave an interview with SiriusXM earlier, citing that a brace failed, causing that issue. Now, keep in mind, usually whenever a driver wins a Cup race, NASCAR takes that car back to the R&D center. The same was done for Harvick, but due to the fact that it was a West Coast race, they will not have the results of that until tomorrow on Wednesday, March 7th. Sam, do you think that what we saw on Harvick's car was fair or foul or not even the story?
I thought it was photoshopped.
Really, there's a couple of angles of it out there now, and it looks as though Childers kind of addressed it. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. talked about this on his podcast. You know, always trying to find a way, trying to find an advantage, but
It looks like someone sat in the back glass.
it does. I'll tell you, I got a Ford Transit as a work vehicle.
Piece of Jello.
And a 2013 Ford Transit. And it's got the long snout for the hood or whatever.
We love it.
Well, I put ladders up there.
Every time I see one, I think of you.
I appreciate it.
Pedal van.
After I tie the ladder down, I don't want to like climb off the back of it off another ladder. I slide down the windshield. Well, I got a big indentation on the top of my roof now from me sliding off that thing. And you're right, it's exactly what it
You
looks
got a
like.
fat ass.
That too. It's a big indentation.
I'm waiting for the encumbered win 2018 scandal.
They got rid of
to
that
begin.
term.
So it's not even a thing anymore.
Yeah,
that's good then.
Well, I think
It was too big of a word for most NASCAR fans.
All right, but they're
Cucumber.
obviously not going to take away a win on Wednesday. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
Well, here's what they said about that. The reason why it's not happening on Tuesday is the car's not back. You got to remember they're out in Las Vegas, out on the West Coast. They're waiting for the car to get back in North Carolina and to the R&D center before they can make a claim on what happened to the car. Here's my theory. I think it was truly a broken mount. I don't think it's something they did on purpose, only because they ran so good at Atlanta and they didn't have it at Atlanta. So why would, if they found something in the wind tunnels that make them faster on a mile and a half track, they would have had that same indentation in the back window and the roof at Atlanta. I mean, he smoked them at Atlanta. Why wouldn't they just go to Vegas with the same deal? I don't think they added. I truly feel it was something broken. That's why the roof started caving down. I don't think it was something they were trying to trick out and get away with.
Scott, I was going to ask, did your little tow truck app on your phone go off for you to haul that car back by any chance?
No.
I guess NASCAR does that. No, but now here's the thing. If they didn't have it at Atlanta, but they had it at Vegas, okay, that's fine. Maybe something did fail, but at the same time, some things can be designed to fail. And, they could have intentionally made it very weak and ready to go, a couple laps in, once you get a little bit of air pressure on it. And, if it did, because I'm thinking, what if that brings a little more air down off the spoiler or down to the spoiler, rather, gives them a little more rear downforce, something like that. I mean, I don't know. It depends, without looking at that effect in a wind tunnel. But the thing is, for me, that one of the articles I was reading is when he was getting out of the car in Victory Lane, as he does, and we grab the hood or the part of the roll cage, and as we climb out. They said him putting his hand on the roof there caused it on the left front corner of the roof, not the back, to move down 2 inches. So, I mean, it seems like it wasn't just that spot. That was the spot where it buckled and made it more visible. But maybe that whole roof is kind of flexing down. And
because now with the new system that they have, it's all about the shape of the body when it goes in, and it has to, if it's too far indented or if it's too far out, then they give like a color schematic to kind of break that down.
Right.
Well, that's only when the car gets through. Now, once you got pressure on it,
exactly,
like you're mentioning, Josh, that could be a little bit different. I kind of think, even if this does come out smelling funny, which it kind of does smell funny already.
That's what happens when you order a Jimmy John sandwich.
Well, it says the Jersey Mike's guy. I kind of applaud this.
Say real quick about Jimmy John's. They did open one right by my house, and we did stop there a couple times, and it was pretty good. It only lasted about 6 months, and it was gone. I think the RA Jersey Mike's just takes over around here.
It's funny you say that, though. I had 3 Jimmy John's open up on Staten Island in a short period of time, and all 3 of them were shut down within about 6 months.
Funny.
They mislead you with the freaky fast. I mean, they're gonna close freaky fast.
Well, they must have roof problems. They're just caving in all the time. And they're just adapting to it.
I tell you what, though, we talk about that freaky fast. It's freaky and annoying because you're trying to tell the guy what you want on your sandwich, and the sandwich is already freaking made. You didn't even have a chance to tell what you wanted on it. It is freaky fast, but it was like, dude, you didn't even make the sandwich I wanted. I was getting ready to tell you what I wanted on it, and the damn thing's already wrapped and done.
And Nick didn't even get to tell him that he didn't want nuts on it.
or meat. The one thing I'm happy about with Atlanta is that I had Cole Custer for the I hate to use the term suicide league.
Survivor,
right.
Yeah.
Deadpool league or whatever it is.
Yeah, you mean Las Vegas.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I picked Cole Custer, and he finished 25th. Better than Choke Elliott. Better than Kurt Busch.
Elliott got caught up in a wreck. It was my pick.
I will say, as much as I don't really like Elliott, that was not his fault.
It looked like Kurt Busch hit a big banana peel from Mario Kart on the bottom of the track, and he was like, yep, F this. There's the wall.
No, to quote Eric Graham, the race was so boring that Busch fell asleep and drove at the wheel and drove up the track into Chase Elliott. But no, now back to the let's just wrap up this whole roof scandal thing here. I remember there's a story my dad was telling years ago. Scott will probably remember this, because
he called you old, Scott.
I was going to say that he knows his racing history, being it's a racing family. There was a team that, and this is back before I was old enough to really follow. They actually had like a hydraulic pump in the back, and so the car would meet all the ride heights and everything else, and then when it would get out there, they were able to activate this pump and kind of suck the rear down a little bit, and it changed the aero for the car and allowed it to go faster. And then
that's kind of where I'm at with this. The way that the rules are so tight and so laser focused, any bit of engineering or creative ingenuity by the crew members or the crew chiefs, I want to applaud it. I don't want to, and that's the problem. A lot of people on the outside look at it as cheating, and a lot of that came from Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus. Like they became so
Thanks,
good.
Obama.
You know, you want to
do you
hammer
want to
them
call
and
it rule
call
bending
them
just to
cheaters.
be nice?
No, it's roof bending,
Gray
Josh.
area. I like
But
that
it's
term.
like being that things are so. It's like somebody brought up. I believe it was on NASCAR America on Monday. They brought up how teams are able to figure out the level of certain air pressures within the cockpit while a car is at speed on the super speedways, and it would get the roof flaps to start fluttering to kind of keep air off the rear spoiler a little bit and send it over the back of the car. I'm like, for guys to come up with some of these things, and I'm not a car guy, so it's fascinating. For some people to come up with these things, and if they came up with something and they got away with it, and they got 2 wins on it, great. If it was something that was designed to fail, Josh, like you said, they probably would just make sure it doesn't fail anymore. But they got something that got them off to a really, really hot start.
If you get one win out of it, if you get by once with no encumbered, none of that stuff, if you get it once, it's that many more points in the book for you.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And you look at and they will try to find every tiny little way. Scott, in our rules for the factory stocks, is it shortened throttle plate screws? They're not allowed.
Yeah, well, that's more of a safety thing. I mean, if you open the butterflies in your carburetor and look down, they don't want you cutting that little extra off. That's a safety thing, really. It does help flow and does let more air in through your butterflies because you're taking that little bit off. But the reason they don't want you doing that is because now you're cutting the threads off the end of the screw, and now the screw can back out and the butterfly can fall off in your carburetor and stick it wide open.
Okay, fair enough. But
Yeah.
if somebody did that they could do it initially to gain an advantage
I
by
used to
getting
do
that
that
little bit more.
I used to do that in my carburetors back in the early 90s. Everybody was doing it. You just shave that little bit off to give you that little bit more flow. Then when I went to the Race of Champions at Pocono, the tech inspector said, you can't do it. And I said, why not? We've been doing that for years. He's like, well, I know it gives you a little advantage, but we don't care about that. The reason we don't want you doing it is because now you cut off the excess threads of that screw, and now your butterfly, if that screw is to loosen up, your butterfly can fall off and then stick your throttle wide open. It was more of a safety thing than a performance.
Yeah, but it's amazing what people will do, and even you think about these 2 tiny little screws, they're trying to get just that much more airflow into the engine to have that bit of an advantage.
Yeah.
So I mean, people they're going to try any area they can.
I have a solution for all this bull crap.
IROC?
No. You just go back to the convertible series. Then you don't have to roof to worry about.
You know what? It's funny you say that. I remember, I don't know, I guess it was mid 90s or something. They, Bruton Smith did have like 4 or 5 of those convertible cars built, and they did race them at Charlotte. They had like 5 guys take them out, and I thought it was cool. I kind of wish they did do it,
Take some notes, Brian France. Never mind.
So Harvick gets the win. That's another win for Ford on the season. That would be 2nd out of 3. Of course, Harvick got them both. However, Ford continues to be strong, and as was noted here on our doc, I don't know if this was you, Sam, or you,
No,
Josh.
it was Josh.
Penske, all 3 cars in the top 10, and if you include
That was
Paul,
me.
so there you go. And then,
What, Scott? You know how to edit the doc?
Scott's a big boy now.
all right, so Scott, I'll give you first dibs. Now we're 3 races in. Daytona really doesn't count all that much, maybe for a play track. So we've seen Atlanta, we've seen Vegas. Does Ford really have the edge so far on the manufacturer side, or is it still too early to tell?
I just think they have a proven product right now. I think Chevy's a little behind because they just came out with this Camaro. They're going to take some time to tweak it, figure it out, get the setup right on it. I just think Ford came out of the box with basically what they had last year, and they were saying all winter they feel like they were behind. They were a year behind, but it might have been a good thing because while these other guys are trying to figure out this new Chevy Camaro, the Ford's just chugging right along. I know some people put Paul Menard down saying that, he's only in that Wood Brothers car because of his family money, but he did a hell of a job. I mean, at Vegas, I was watching him. He was in the top 10 all day. He was battling up there in 5th and 6th place all day. He was making some great passes. I think he ran very, very well. So, I consider that the 4th Penske car. So technically, I think we had 4 Penske cars in the top 10, and that's great.
Wasn't it? No, never mind. That was he won Indianapolis in the 27, right? Not the 98.
Yes.
Okay, never mind.
And also, tip of the hat already to Eric Almirola in the 10 car, giving that car as much top 10s already this year as it had all of last year, and that's
and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that.
And that's something that Harvick has said. He said he believes the reason why Stewart Haas Racing is so strong is because they have the 10 team up to par now, which
well, people don't realize it's an extra like source of resources and testing, and they're not going to test crap on Kevin Harvick unless it's a new spongy roof. Then apparently it works. But besides anything after that, they're going to mess that around with Eric Almirola and then whatever is
Almirola.
And the second it runs good on his car, take it right off.
Thank you, Nick
Kevin
Rendo.
Harvick's car.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Screw you, bastards.
But I think what Kevin Harvick was saying is the 10 car is pulling its own weight now,
right?
And helping. Before the 10 car was struggling, they had to help the 10 car. Now the 10 car is pretty good, and it's helping the other cars, and it brought in funding. I mean, last year the 10 car with Danica was struggling with funding. I mean, they were in court with Nature's Bakery trying to get money owed to them, so that's a headache. And now Eric comes in here with Smithfield in full funding, and it just helps. And they probably brought in some more people and had more money to do testing and stuff. And Eric's a pretty good driver. If Ford keeps going this way, where they're very competitive, I'm pretty sure Eric and maybe even Paul Menard will get wins in Ford's in the first half of the season.
It's something that we're going to continue to watch as the season unfolds. Series, of course, goes on to Phoenix along with the NASCAR Xfinity Series, but I also see somebody was kind enough to point out the fuel spill during a latter portion of the race on Joey Gaze's number 55. Josh, was that you?
Yeah, I put that in. I was watching the highlights. I think it was an ESPN show, and they had like all the highlights from all the sports, and everybody knew how to comment on everything. Where did Scott go? I just lost Scott's video.
Yeah, that's something you did. I'm still up here. I lost you guys now.
That's weird.
Baby, come back.
I'll fix that. There's Scott. Anyway, so it was funny because these people are talking and giving all their opinions on every basketball game and this and that, and they got to the NASCAR bit, and they were saying like biggest loser or something like that because of this pit issue, where I guess the fuel hose at the top had become disconnected. I don't know if the hose clamp is loose or whatever, and the fuel guy goes to
stick it in.
Yeah. And
the hose was loose, and it didn't want to go in.
Larry McReynolds chimed in, and he said something that was kind of funny. He's like, guys, the fuel man is only allowed to fuel the car now. There is no reason for this to be happening. And I mean, he's right. It's
I don't
like
know.
back in the day where the fuel guy was making the adjustments while holding the cam with one arm and stuff.
Excessive spillage.
Yeah,
man.
but this was the hose, a fuel can failure. It wasn't him putting it into the car. Where this was up higher on it, and then he's trying to figure it out, and it caused all sorts of problems.
Was it spongy
now,
like
the
Harvick's
people,
roof?
whoever was on this this ESPN show, they had almost no knowledge of racing whatsoever. It was just idiots.
F1, here we come.
Yeah, I know. Don't even remind me.
Anyway, that's a good point, Sam. Now, here's the thing. Who is responsible for the fuel cans? Because everybody seems to have the same fuel can. I know they all get the same fuel.
The teams are. I mean, pretty much the fuel. The guy that fuels the cars, he's responsible for his equipment.
Okay.
I mean, I've been on pit road. I have jack cars at Daytona under pit stops. I was responsible for the jack. Before the race started, I went over to Jack. I made sure it had the hydraulic oil, and I made sure all the nuts and bolts were tight.
Right.
I made sure the wheels rolled. I lubed them with WD-40. Same thing with the fuel jug guy. He was going over his fittings. He was making sure all the hose clamps were tight. He was making sure everything was going. I mean, really, it comes down to the guy operating the equipment. He's responsible for it. It's in his hands. He's got to check it out. And it was funny because when the fuel did start spilling all over the ground, the guy didn't even care. Like, he never asked for another fuel can or nothing. He just said, all right, well, it broke. I'm going back over the wall. It was almost like the car didn't need fuel. It's like he came down pit road just for a splash and go, and they were doing something else. Like, it didn't even need to be fueled on that stop. So it was kind of weird.
Yeah. Now, well, here's the thing, because we saw a lot. Well, I wouldn't say we saw a lot. We saw a couple pit gun issues, failures. And again, I go to this is a bunch of Republicans blaming the gun now.
Oh my God.
I had to.
You're jumping the gun today, aren't you?
Oh my God.
But
shots fired.
With NASCAR basically taking over and controlling the gun. Are we going to, if we see more?
So is there a minimum age you need to be a rear tire changer or tire changer in NASCAR now? Is that 21?
I know.
14.
Okay, we're way off topic now. The Xfinity race on Saturday.
Wait. No, I have a question. Do we see if we see more fuel can failures? Are we going to see NASCAR issuing and renting out fuel cans?
They might. I mean, they'll do whatever they can to try to initiate another Ponzi scheme like that.
Can you imagine the NASCAR logo over the like ghettoly taped over the Sunoco logos and all the cans and crap, fueling up with Monster or something like that?
They're going to get them all from Harbor Freight.
I will tell you though. I will say by
idea.
race 6, if the air gun issue is not figured out, NASCAR's got a huge problem because at the end of the day, this is causing people points. Races. Maybe it didn't cost anybody a win yet, but it could. It very well could.
That's the fun part.
You're right.
Let them mess up.
But here's the thing.
But it's not a mistake. See, usually if it was a team part, that's different. You could accept that. It's your stuff that failed. In this case, they're leasing something from NASCAR. Like, I lease a car because it's usually covered by the manufacturer for the duration of the lease. I don't have to worry about getting it fixed if something goes wrong with it.
And with the way Eric drives.
Well, but the way that these guns are working, it's that same little bit of insurance is not
there.
The
gun's not the problem. The people's the problem.
We're talking about. Oh my goodness.
No, but let's. I don't want to go in because this has been covered so much. But I want to say
it's still an issue.
It was one of the commentators over the weekend was talking about that, and another gun failure happened, and they said, look, even if it was the teams that had control over this, and before. Some failures would happen no matter if you rebuilt it right before. You can have a part failure. It's mechanical. It happens. But you wouldn't notice it because nobody's calling attention to it because it wasn't NASCAR. There was nobody to point the blame at.
Right. I believe.
So I think we're hearing about this. I don't know that the failures are really any more or less than they were prior. It's just that they're talking about them now.
Yeah, but before, if your personal gun failed, it's your fault. Now that it's not your gun and it's failing, it's NASCAR's fault. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And another thing, real quick too, we've been making mistakes talking about the pit guns. We've been saying that they're using this gun in all 3 series. I just learned that it's only the Xfinity series and the Cup. The truck's still using their own guns.
But a lot of the people are trying to get their hands on the trucks and stuff so they can practice and wear it in. But it's not working because we talked about last week that there's that lottery system with these guns that they're just. I mean, they can't practice with them on a weekly basis, on a week-to-week basis.
Right.
It's
so
almost
as of right now, the truck series still uses their personal guns. That's why we're not hearing of any failures in there. But I think Josh is right. Before, when someone's gun failed, they weren't. They didn't make it public and they didn't say, hey, my gun broke because it was their gun. Now it's NASCAR's gun. They're quick to point out that the gun broke and it's NASCAR's fault.
Yep, I am.
Passing the blame on to somebody else.
I'd say if it's not sorted out in another 4 or 5 races, and this is going to be a storyline throughout the year. The lug nut thing from a year ago went away, but this is going to eventually end up costing somebody a chance at winning a race that could get them into the playoffs.
It's like Dale Jr. retiring. All right, we know it's happening already. Just shut the door.
Yeah, but that's not a
door.
problem that needs addressing. This is something that they got to get their hands on, or they may have to revert back to Plan A.
Another thing I'm a little mad about the guns too is the company itself. I think it's an Italian company. Why don't they go to an American company like Snap-on or
Nick's face?
No, I agree with that. It's an American sport. I agree
wider.
that it should be American.
Why are we using Craftsman or Snap-on? Yeah, it's an American sport. Why? I don't know why
I
they
agree.
want to.
Were you also against Toyota coming in? What was that?
No.
Everyone's laughing here.
I mean, Josh is pulling for Nissan to come in, so.
Sure, why not?
I can't back that.
Come on, Hyundai.
Now, a feel-good story that has come out of the sport this week on the Cup side of things as we look ahead to Phoenix. FAS Racing driver Matt DiBenedetto, who actually ran a dirt car at New Egypt Speedway last year or 2 years ago, put a video out on his Twitter that he was in need of a sponsor. Well, it didn't take long. Denny Hamlin, who I think is trying to redeem himself in the court of public opinion, was the first one to kind of step up and offer $5,000 to DiBenedetto and his team as a sponsorship
That's like a pair of
offer.
sneakers for him.
And for Hamlin it is. Yeah. That was quickly then matched by Darrell Waltrip, and then Kevin Harvick and his business eventually stepped up with $5,000. So within the span of about an hour and a half, DiBenedetto was able to raise $15,000 for his Cup team. And then according to Chris Knight of CatchFence.com, he's going to pick up primary sponsorship from Zynga Poker, which is a poker app for your smartphone. And I'll tell you, Scott, when we talk about this stuff in racing, we see it at Wall Stadium Speedway all the time. Stuff like this is what makes our sport so special. You know, a good guy little team that could, maybe like the Furniture Row Racing was about 10 years ago. That's what Go FAS Racing reminds me of. A lot of good people, a lot of smart people, a lot of talented people trying to get themselves moving in the right direction. And all these people who have already made it, succeeded, and even walked away from the sport, like Darrell Waltrip, in terms of driving, they're all trying to make it happen. Isn't it? We're complaining about pit guns and all this other stuff, but this is what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for years. I mean, how many times did we see Dale Earnhardt ink on, say, like Dave Marcus's car or Ernie Irvin's car or even Ken Schrader's car back in the day? Dale Jarrett, too, he used to help Morgan Shepherd all the time. They would have the Dale Jarrett racing experience on the side of the car. Tony Stewart, Kevin Harvick used to buy Morgan's tires, too. I lost you again, Josh. But
I didn't even touch anything.
We still got you, though, Scott.
Yeah, this has been going on in our sport for years. You know what's kind of funny, too? It's always $5,000. I don't know why that's the magic number, but it's $5,000. There must be something on the business side, the tax side of why these guys give $5,000.
Is that like a tire bill for them for a weekend?
Yeah, maybe that's the total of a set of tires. I don't know, but it always seems like they give $5,000. They never give like 7,500, or they never give 3,000. It's always 5,000.
Or it could be a tax deductible.
Yeah, I'm wondering because
it's got to be a tax deal.
And it's funny that you guys mentioned that because Harvick put it underneath his management company, which I think was KHI Management. Darrell Waltrip put it underneath Boogity Brands, which is his merchandising company. And I'm not sure what Hamlin's going to file his under, but Hamlin referenced his people.
Hamlin put it under his foundation, the Denny Hamlin Foundation.
Yeah, so you're right. That's a really good point. I'm going to have to reach out to my accountant on that.
But there's also maybe a limit on how much you can receive as a gift.
Yeah.
Or what about just a loss because it's Matt DiBenedetto? It's not a profit. They're not profiting the $5,000. It's going to be just a written loss.
Yeah.
Womp womp.
Have some faith. That team is. They're coming up.
We filmed this. We recorded this on Tuesday nights, and this just started. I have a feeling by race day, it's going to grow. I think this team's going to have a fair amount of money. I think it's going to go from 15,000 to around 50,000. I think you're going to see other people jumping on for 5,000. Even maybe some small teams in the Arizona, Phoenix area will jump on. All we got to do is give them $5,000. There might be like a towing company or a trucking company in that area. Say, hey, we'll give you $5,000. Get us into the pits and stuff like that. It's going to be fun this week to watch to see if that grows more than 15,000, and I think it will.
Well, I think this poker app company is already getting great publicity because this is a story already, and they probably jumped up and said, hey, we'll foot the rest of the bill, and now they're going to be attached to all these headlines about all these people volunteering to help this guy out. I think it's a great move by them.
Get all these people with gambling problems to join it.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see how NASCAR is going to accept that. I mean, I've been at the racetracks, and there's been like dating sites on people's race cars, and NASCAR comes over and says,
Farmers
no,
only.
not happening.
Christian
Yeah,
Ringle.
yeah. I mean, it was stuff like that. It was almost like escort service. And NASCAR would say no. I've seen NASCAR say no before. I mean, Derek Cope had Ozfest on there with Ozzy Osbourne and had like the devil on there and stuff like that, and they made him pull that off.
No fun.
I'm waiting to see if this poker thing's really going to stick. Well, it's going to be a wait and see type of thing. See what NASCAR says about them, because these teams do have to get all their sponsors approved through NASCAR, and for some reason, I don't think this poker online betting thing is going to fly with them.
They might have to do like what Ferrari did when they stopped with the cigarette sponsors and they just left that barcode
right
on the car.
Yeah, how funny was that? But Marlboro was sponsoring the cars, and it just looked like a pack of cigarettes with nothing that said Marlboro on the side of it. That was crazy.
You got to skirt by it somehow. But now, actually, now I remember back like when Nextel took over.
How cool were those phones?
Jeff Burton and
I was like 8, like wishing I was my older cousins.
Was it Burton that
Jeff
still had
Burton
singular?
Yeah,
and it was grandfathered in. They had to allow it. And then from then on, you weren't allowed any new competitor sponsors. Motorola, which makes radios. I mean, half the radios in the pits probably they had to fight to get their logo on a car because they make cell phones, but they weren't actually a competing provider, which that was a weird thing. But I see like with this the poker thing, maybe they'll allow it, but then they can kind of tell Fox, hey, unless this car's in a wreck, it doesn't get on camera. Because somebody pointed out, and I started paying attention to it after that they were not showing Suarez's car on TV. Like they showed one like onboard shot, but like for the most part, maybe he wasn't doing anything worth putting on camera, but they kind of avoided Suarez.
When?
Yeah, I did notice that because I liked Suarez's car. I thought that was really cool looking. The old, if people don't know at home, it was completely red with Coca-Cola on it. It looked like an old Cup car that Bobby Allison would have drove with the Coca-Cola sponsorship. The car looked awesome. It looked like a can of soda. It was all red with the with the white Coca-Cola logo on the side and the white wave stripe on it. And we were working in the garage on my race car, and Ron Becker, one of my crew guys, was here helping. I said, Ron, keep an eye on the TV. I want you to see Daniel Suarez's car. It's a really cool looking Cup car. With all these new wraps, they're starting to get really crazy. But this was basic, simple, but it really stood out. It looked really cool. He was watching for like 15 minutes. He's like, they're not showing his car. They're not showing his car. So finally, we looked it up on my phone, and I showed him a picture of the car. But yeah, you only saw it a few times.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's something else, at play. Because there could be behind-the-scenes politics always.
So I knew this, and I just want to double-check. Monster is owned by Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
So it might be Coca-Cola or the Monster people saying, hey, Coca-Cola, you have your own NASCAR thing, but we're not going to try to compete here, because I think there's two different markets between soft drinks and energy drinks.
I don't know. It's still the whole thing.
It was a sexy car, though. It was a classic-looking car. I mean, it was
damn cool. It was definitely cool.
It just seemed a little odd, suspicious.
And here's another weird thing about it too. I wonder why that car wasn't at Atlanta, where Coco's.
They had the big factory.
Offices.
Yeah.
But they waited for Vegas to debut it. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but it was definitely a cool-looking car.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing seems. I don't know. That's a side tangent, but it just seemed weird to me. I thought it was worth bringing up. So, yeah. Anyway.
Well, if we want to put a wrap on the Vegas weekend, we'll start with the NASCAR Xfinity Series race, which as a whole, I thought the race was an 8 out of 10. Constant battling, constant passing. Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell went at it for the whole race until Larson ended up running away with it. Kyle Busch got himself in some hot water. First time we've seen an Xfinity race where Busch was not competitive at all. That car was just off the pace. I was sitting in a bar. No surprise there. I was on my way back from Lincoln Speedway with Joey Bailey.
You don't say.
And we were watching the Xfinity race there, so I didn't have audio to see what was going on. And I'm looking on Twitter, and I see Ricky Craven tweet, is Kyle Busch down a cylinder? And I'm like, oh, now it makes sense. Then I come to find out he was just being facetious. And Busch was just struggling. And he even got into it with his teammate Brandon Jones, and tempers got high a little bit there. But the race itself, I thought, was
He didn't
great.
end up with blood on his forehead this time.
No, not this time.
Kyle Busch was complaining that he had no rear grip the whole race. Nothing they could do with the car would make the rear tires of the car stick.
If they folded the roof down, it would help.
Yeah, maybe. But he did say something funny coming off pit road. He's like, not only are we slow on the track, but we just got beat out of the pits by the number 4 car, which was Ross Chastain, a smaller team, that JD Motorsports team. But so as Kyle's complaining that his crew sucks and they're too slow, NASCAR came on the radio saying that the 4 car was speeding on pit road. So the real reason he got beat off pit road was because the 4 car was speeding. So he had to be a little embarrassed.
Yeah, he had to eat his own words there a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely had to eat his words there. But you know what? But then again, it only goes to show you that Kyle Busch is only human. Cup drivers in the Xfinity Series are only human. They can have bad days too. You know what I'm saying?
And we did see some Xfinity regulars up there mixing it up. Christopher Bell was a prime example. He was fighting for it for quite some time. So it ends up being Larson, and Kyle Busch will be back in the car next week at Phoenix on the Xfinity side. Truck race Friday night.
That was a fun race to watch.
I said it was a 9 out of 10. I was glued. Actually,
so for normal people, that's like a 6 or a 7.
No, I am the eternal optimist when it comes to racing, because I'm like Scott. I could watch people, run around with electric wheelchairs in a parking lot around cones or something like that. I'll be entertained by it.
What a dumbass.
I'm just saying, it happens.
Why wheelchair?
You could have tandem drafting with that stuff.
You ever actually see like a very older person in like a wheelchair, like the electric ones? I think they make up for their not being able to walk, unfortunately, on the road. They go or in Wegmans, and they go very quick.
Somebody points out Wegmans. Scott, what you got?
Something that wasn't talked about the truck race was that Kyle Busch won the truck race, and he won it with the old style engine. He wasn't using a spec engine, and it was something interesting I learned about the old style engine and the spec engine. The spec engine is definitely better. It definitely shows up more horsepower on the dyno, but one thing they did say about the spec engine is it's quicker on restarts, and that brings us back to the last truck race when Brett Moffitt, remember we were talking about how he smoked him on the restart and won the race? He also runs the spec engine, the old style engine, not the spec engine. So it is good on restart. So for Kyle Busch to win that race, it was a lot more challenging than you would think, because he did have the older style built engine because he wants to still run his Toyota engine because he is a Toyota truck. For him to go out and beat those spec engines with more horsepower, It's something to be said about how good of a driver he is and how well that truck handled.
And another truck in the field that was not running the spec engine was the driver who probably should have won for the second week in a row, and that was Brett Moffitt. He also was running, I believe it's a Mark Conquest built engine.
Didn't Brett Moffitt win last week?
He ended up winning at Atlanta. He probably should have won Vegas. He was driving away, and then he got into it with Michel Dissiter, the French driver, who was a lap down. In fact, lap trucks were a very big problem in the Truck Series race.
They were concerned about the closing rate, and then I forget who it was complaining that they didn't know how to these lap cars didn't know how to drive, and it's like it's a beginner series for
right. I agree with you, Josh.
It's like, well, that's almost like let's say a modified driver coming in and complaining about the factory stock guy who just moved up.
What? Me, with all my experience being in the factory stock races, we get these 50 lappers, we get mixing it up with lap cars. I enjoy the lap traffic. I really enjoy, picking my way through them and also making passes on lead lap cars in lap traffic because I can use them as a pick.
Yeah.
And I look at it just exactly what you said, Josh. Here I am, a very experienced race car driver running in the factory stock division. If there's a rookie and they screw up and as I'm lapping them, I really don't complain much because it's the factory stock division. Where else can they start racing at? They're supposed to be there racing, and they're going to make mistakes. It's me as an experienced driver that's got to know how to get around them. And with Brett Moffitt complaining about the lap traffic, it was kind of his fault and the spotter's fault because the spotter should be telling him, hey, this guy's 2 seconds slower. You're going to be gaining on him quick. Be careful. He made a mistake too, so you can't totally blame it on the lap truck.
I think the French guy did run once kind of high.
He was French, this guy?
Michel Dissiter. He's
around, so. I was thinking that.
It's still red, white, and blue, Scott. I mean, it's just the wrong order.
You didn't say he was French. Now the truth comes out.
Now he got into it with the 16, somewhere around 25 laps to go, and there was man, it was heavy contact, but they saved. I was like, for
Moffitt
sure,
did a
big
great
caution.
job not wrecking.
Great job. That was a great action to watch. But before that, they were talking about there was some French artist was a sponsor on the guy's truck, and then of all people, Michael Waltrip tries to do a French accent. So just imagine that in your heads for a second.
Did he have pants on?
His britches was hanging low.
Oh, wee.
No wee.
Kyle Busch goes on to win the
Little
race
wee-wee.
after Moffitt tangles with the lap truck of Distier or Dissiter. I don't know how to say his name. Hopefully he doesn't come back for a while.
There goes your job interview.
So
Hopefully he doesn't come back in a while.
So that was mean. I feel bad. You ever say something as it leaves your mouth, you kind of want it back? That was it. That was my moment. I said say something. Kyle Busch wins the race in his hometown. What was that? Actually, Harvick's win Sunday was his 100th NASCAR win in the National Series ever, and Kyle Busch's win got him, I think, tied with Ron Hornaday on the all-time wins list in the Truck Series on Friday. I think it's 50 or 51 is the number.
I love Ron Hornaday.
So.
Nick and I are playing footsies again underneath the table.
Not surprised. Also, I want to give a shout-out to Justin Fontaine, a driver who got himself his first top 10 in the Truck Series and only his third start with the Nice organization. And we are happy to say that we are trying to work out details, thanks to our buddy Sam, to get Justin on the show with us. So I'm looking forward to talking to him.
And shout-out to my mutual friend of Justin and I, Jill. It's funny. Quick story about Justin Fontaine.
See how we outline that they're mutual friends?
It's really it's really weird because I walked past Justin Fontaine on campus because he goes to UNC Charlotte, and he had his 45 hat on and the NASCAR shirt, and I was like, I'm going to fangirl over this kid right now real quick. So I double took him. I ran after him, and I was like, dude, you need to come on the show. And he's excited to come on. He had a dinner deal tonight, which is why he's not on tonight, but we're going to get him on next week.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to Justin. And a lot of people remember him from the ARCA wreck at Daytona last year, which actually broke his lower back, and he had to sit out a lot of the year.
The kid's got jokes.
So,
and it's not the way he drives either, unlike most of us. Minus Scott.
Sam, do you know why he's going to college? Like what his major is? I was just curious what a race car driver would go to college.
I think it's a business. I think he's going to school for business. I could be wrong.
Which is good. I mean, it can help him handle the money and maybe raise money for his team. Also, that Truck Series team that he's racing for, that Nice Motorsports, isn't that owned by like a military guy or something like that, like a Marine or something like that? Do you know of?
I'll double check.
I'm not sure.
It might be because they would always have like an American flag look to their trucks, not the one that
retired Marine or something that owns that team. There's another Fontaine that races too. Are they related?
I guess we'll find out next week.
Tune in, Scott. You're getting ahead of it. We got to wait.
The other one is Chris Fontaine.
Yeah,
And-
Chris Fontaine, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
he races late models and trucks. I'm assuming they're related. But while he's trying to look up some stuff on Fontaine, because we're not really up to snuff on what.
Did we
what
mention
he's
that
about.
Stuart Friesen?
Stuart Friesen, yeah, Stuart Friesen,
that's
a local guy that races dirt in our area. He really had a great run. He's running for a different team this year, and
he won the
he's doing
second
very, very
stage.
well.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
props to him. Oh, something else I noticed, and we were talking about like with the Kyle Busch and the I believe it was Kyle Busch and the lug nuts, or with the the tire changer. Maybe there's a miscommunication, and he left the pit and the tire fell off. That was at Atlanta. Well, it looks like the teams are learning from that, and the 16 for the truck race, there was a problem with the right front. And, so the right rear guy did his thing or whatever. He goes around, and he just sat there with the gun. He didn't remove the lug nuts on the left side. He was waiting for the right front guy to come around.
Catch up.
Yeah,
So
because
they do it together and they change the tire together.
that way if they
rather than
changed
one
it to
be done.
2 tires or something like that, they wouldn't have that problem.
What a
with the wheel falling
gentleman.
off.
And Nice Motorsports, the guy sells fuel and lube trucks and water trucks.
Propane? Is he a propane?
So
salesman?
propane and propane accessories.
I sell propane and propane accessories.
Where have you been, Eric Brennan?
I didn't even know we had that. I had no idea.
You didn't listen to last week.
Not the whole thing. I know that Sam had a bunch of women in his room last week. I know that.
And I still do this week because I'm sitting with them right now.
What are you doing home? I would have stayed down there. All right, before we take a quick break, because we got to get Rendo recharged, because we're going to talk about some open wheel stuff finally. It's been a couple weeks. I know a lot of our listeners are waiting on that.
Sorry, Shimtown. We're getting to you.
Actually, I'm trying to work out something with him. I've been in talks with
I don't
him.
want to know
And
what you're working on.
I have something else that I'm working on when I go to Arizona in a couple weeks, but I'll tell you guys about that during the break.
I work
NASCAR
out.
Hall of Fame nominees just got rolled out. The newest 5 candidates, Jeff Gordon. Now, remember, he was supposed to be retired for 2 years. They're not holding against him the few starts that he took for Earnhardt Jr. against him. So Gordon will be on the ballot for 2019. Also, Harry Gant, car owners Ralph Moody and John Holman, and former Dale Earnhardt crew chief Kirk Shelmerdine are the newest 5 additions to the ballot. Drivers who are on altogether, drivers would be Davey Allison, Buddy Baker, Red Farmer, Alan Kowicki, Bobby Labonte, Herschel McGriff, Larry Phillips, Ricky Rudd, and short tracker Mike Stefanik. Among the car owners not mentioned, Joe Gibbs, Roger Penske, and Jack Roush. And among the mechanics and crew chiefs not mentioned, Ray Fox, Harry Hyde, and Waddell Wilson.
Can I mention something real quick? I know we're going long here, and I'm sorry. If Jeff Gordon gets in before Alan Kowicki, I will be pissed.
I need to take a moment to sit down and go over the policy procedure of the Hall of Fame.
I think 2 years is too soon. I thought it was 5 years you had to be retired as a driver before you can get into the Hall of Fame, but I guess not.
This is Jeff Gordon, Scott.
Yeah.
I definitely think Jeff Gordon's going right in. There's no way you can overlook that.
The problem is they've kind of shuffled around their order of priority in terms of building up this Hall of Fame. And I don't know if I'm necessarily on board with it. There are some that should be automatic ins. Yeah, there are some people we should have just put in because of what they've done to the sport. Earnhardt, Petty. You could throw in guys like Hornaday and Sprague in there because they're going to go in for what they did in the Truck Series. Jack Ingram for what he did in the Xfinity Series. Like, there are some people just deserve presence. Same thing with, Bill France Sr. and Bill France Jr. They were elected into the Hall of Fame because of their contributions.
What about like Kinzer or somebody?
Well, I don't know if
That's
you'll see
not
Kinzer in there because it's not NASCAR related.
But all right, yeah, technically.
But let's call a spade here, and I don't want to get into this too much. But Davey Allison, obviously
We talked about this before.
That's a very, very sensitive subject for a driver who he was able to do a lot. Considering the fact that his career did not last as long as it should have.
Adam Petty.
Adam Petty. I'm an Adam Petty fan, but I don't know if you could justify that. Allison had a bunch of wins, though, and competed for championships, but is he Hall of Fame worthy? And considering the fact that there are some guys who may be on the outside looking in, and same thing here. Joe Gibbs, yes. Roger Penske, yes. Jack Roush, yes. All these guys deserve to be in. But since they're only putting 5 in a year, it's kind of making this pretty tough.
Well, they got time. I'm just saying Alan Kowicki better be going before Jeff Gordon.
Sam was also in favor of fast tracking. What was it? John Paul II to sainthood or whatever.
Actually, I was. That's a fun fact. I actually was.
But even with Alan Kowicki, yeah, I think the man definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He did a lot in a very short time. He did things his way, and he got it done, and he did win the championship. but I think he only has like 5 wins or something like that. I mean, are they really Hall of Fame numbers?
Yeah, and I think Allen's biggest credit was doing it as a owner driver, and
Right.
that's that. Maybe he was the last one. I mean, I don't know if Stewart's championship and his own team really counts, considering he's in a partnership. But
Yeah.
that's.
I mean, I definitely think Allen does deserve to be in, but Sam's saying, if Jeff Gordon gets in before Alan Kawicki, that's a shame, and I don't see it that way. I mean, I think Jeff Gordon
We're
definitely deserves
talking
to be in.
93 wins here. I mean, that is
incredible.
Looks like we're going to agree to disagree.
But basically, we're getting down to it. If you win a championship, did he deserve to be in just based on having one championship?
I don't think so.
I think you are.
Really?
I think you are. It's hard to win a championship unless you read Nick Rendo's book, and it tells you all about how to win.
I like that a lot. Do we think that 5 is too small of a number every year? Do we think we should increase it?
It's hard, and I like to go back into how the NFL did it. How did baseball do it when they first rolled out their Hall of Fame? Like, when did they roll out their Hall of Fame in terms of when the sport began? Because NASCAR's in a weird spot. They were in existence for over 60 years when they decided to build a Hall of Fame. And
I think the first year they should have put like 20 or 25 in, and then went to 5. Get the definite ones that should have been in, get them all in with the top, the first 25, and then start picking at them 5 a year.
Now, but here's the thing: how far down are you extending it? Because I mean, most people are going to think. I mean, the general on a national level, most people are going to think about the Cup Series or maybe just the top 3 series. But if you get down to the NASCAR Whelen Modifieds and things like that, you're extending, you're opening yourself up. So I mean. That's where you're looking at going above 5.
We've got Richie Evans in there already.
Yeah, and Jared Cook. Jared Cook is also in.
Yeah, and that it's kind of having to set a precedent, because if you want to concentrate more on the top 3 series, which is what people aspire to be, and that's what's supposed to be the top, the best.
Right.
And if you're going to focus on that, then 5 would be probably fine, or even too much.
Right.
So I guess they have to set more of a precedent of exactly where they're going to go. But here's the thing.
Really, Sam Ballard should be answering these questions. He's the one with the annual pass to the Hall of Fame. He's
well, all I'm saying, NASCAR, is you're going to lose a yearly member if Alan Quickie doesn't. If Alan Quickie doesn't get in before Jeff Gordon.
Okay,
that's all I'm saying.
But here's the thing. Now,
Sam Ballard, he's invested with his hard-earned money.
Physically, mentally, sometimes even sexually with this NASCAR crap. I'll tell you what, it's sexually frustrating when this happens. I'll tell you that.
Wait. One last thing. I just want to ask.
Easy out.
That would have been the out, but
I tried.
Sam barged on through.
Sexually, of course.
Does Redneck Jesus deserve to go in the Hall of Fame?
I say yes. If you're gonna, I mean, we talked about this before.
Based on what?
End the show.
Numbers. Would you put Mark Martin in?
He's already in.
Yeah, Junior's numbers are right there.
You
with
know
Mark
how
Martin.
we know he's already in? Because we saw his car.
Plus,
you also
Mark Martin put more years in.
We did.
That's even more of a point that Junior was able to accomplish similar to what Mark did in less time. And also, you got the fact that the 2 Xfinity titles Junior had is his.
Fine. You want to know what?
Yeah,
nobody gets in now. If Mark Martin can get in, that's it. We're done with this crap. End the show.
On that note, we are going to take a rare break because we're going to let everybody get a chance to catch up here. We're going to talk about our buddy Nick, about the March 25th season opener for Formula One. Now that we know what the cars look like, we've seen them on track,
preseason testing.
There's a lot to look forward to. And also the IndyCar Series season will kick off this Sunday and a whole bunch more. You're listening to the RPM Podcast with Scott Riggleman, Sam Ballard Jr., Nick Rendo, Josh Matthews, and myself, Eric Brennan. Don't go anywhere.
Hey everybody, this is Sam Ballard from the RPM Podcast. Planning an event and looking for a great time? Go no further than RC2U Racing for all your portable family entertainment. RC2U turns any occasion into a competition. Check them out online at rc2uracing.com.
Welcome back to the RPM Podcast. Scott Riggleman, Sam Ballard Jr., Nick Rendo, Josh Matthews, and of course, I'm Eric Brennan. I think. I don't know. My birthday was Friday. I had a good time.
No, Scott already said happy birthday, but you probably didn't listen to the podcast, so.
It's funny. I had birthday cake while we were talking about your birthday.
Nancy just came walking by. You had birthday cake?
Right, it was Claire's birthday, but you would know that because you didn't listen to the podcast last week.
No, I skimmed through it because I heard something about girls barging into your room, and I was like, oh, man, I'm so proud of him. And then when I turned it on, it was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. I had to check it out. So I was looking at it. My friend's back home.
Sam's dad is listening to this.
I know, and he's probably just as proud as I am.
He's praying for her.
I lost my train of thought. My friends threw me a surprise party on Friday. I can't thank my buddy Sean and everybody who came out enough. And then on Saturday, I went to Lincoln Speedway with Joey Bailey, and it was a great weekend.
Screw that guy because he makes fun of my Jimmy Johnson poster. Screw that guy.
Bailey?
Screw that guy.
What about Scott? He made fun of it too.
Screw that guy.
No, I didn't make fun of it. I just asked for it to be tore down. That's different. I did not make fun of it.
I thought I did see that. And I thought she was going to turn around and do it. So
it was pretty big though.
The poster. Speaking of big, the halo on the F1 cars.
Yeah,
huge. Been a big, huge topic of conversation.
I freaking
And for
love
the
it.
first time, we have our Formula One extraordinaire
Analyst.
representing Ferrari,
No.
our very own and beloved Nick Rendo.
What's up, man? Yeah, so basically last week we saw the new 2018 cars finally be unveiled for preseason testing. And for the most part, the Mercedes actually looks very, very similar. They said that, and I quote, they took the diva out of the car, so I guess we'll see what that means. In more fascinating news, the Ferrari is actually 8 centimeters longer than it was last year, so I'm pretty intrigued to see how that would work. However, they really didn't learn.
Which car was?
The Ferrari. 8 centimeters longer. Yeah, it's pretty insane. But now the fascinating thing was it was actually so cold last week in Barcelona that
So how was it longer? Wouldn't it be shorter if it was colder?
because you're at least making me lose my train of thought. Because it was so cold in Barcelona, they really don't know how the cars are running and really be up to speed. Just because, like Scott, you would know that you can't really tune it, for the race day in May in Barcelona when it's 80 degrees, and it actually snowed one day, which was unheard of. When does that even happen?
That was kind of cool though, to see that.
Yeah.
I've raced in the snow. Let's do it. Right, Scott?
Josh had his best finish in the snow, right? That was your
They call me
Third,
Iceman.
yeah. I got third at Mountain. Nancy, hi.
Frozen ketchup.
Sorry.
But yeah, so that was rather fascinating with the snow, and also the only car to not break down is actually the Honda of the Toro Rosso. Go figure. How amazing is that?
They were making a big deal out of it. Now, didn't McLaren switched?
Yes,
from
it's still
Honda,
having problems.
But they switched from Honda to
Renault.
To Renault.
Yes.
And
Can't catch a break.
Still having problems. So they basically have the same exact engine as Red Bull. And now this is going to be a fascinating storyline going into the season because Red Bull is actually leaving to go to Aston Martin next year. And the Red Bull team principal, Christian Horner, has had exchanged a lot of words with Renault. And now when you have McLaren, who can build a chassis just as well as Red Bull can, and you have Renault, who's, arguing with Red Bull at the time, they're probably going to give their good equipment to McLaren, which is going to be very fascinating because then that could theoretically make McLaren the best of the rest. Obviously, probably still having Ferrari and Mercedes being, the cream of the crop, always fighting for the wins.
Well, here's the thing.
Red Bull was the best of the rest. And now, are we going to see this season McLaren filling out that third step on the podium?
It's possible. I mean, do you see a resurgence for McLaren now that they've switched motors, despite some issues?
Yeah.
As Sam drops his phone.
Yeah. The fact is they still have a good engine.
Now, do you think this is
fast.
related to getting rid of, what was it, Ron Dennis? And going to Zach Brown?
No.
And not,
they
not
had
the
that
one
last
with the
year.
band.
Fried chicken.
Yeah, yes, but they
Yes.
still had the problem with the Honda motor.
Yeah, no, I don't think it has anything to do with him at all. I actually don't even think that he oversees technical things. I don't think he oversees anything with the engine.
But
I think
bringing in marketing.
He is theoretically just marketing, and I think he's done incredible things. He's brought Fernando to the Rolex 24, which, might I add, is the most watched Rolex 24 in history, and that is because Fernando Alonso was there, 100%. He brought him to the Indy 500, which was a major success, and he's going to bring him to Le Mans this year.
Okay.
So I think he's doing an incredible job. And now a quick side note. Fernando Alonso is going to race for Toyota, which is kind of a slap in the face to Honda, if you think about it.
Yeah.
But he's going to be racing for Toyota in the Le Mans. Now, that is the World Endurance Championship, is, like the sanctioning body that controls that.
Yes.
They're having Fernando race at Suzuka for the Japanese race that they have.
That's
Right, but-
Suzuka's a cool course.
Which is-
Correct me if I'm wrong, sorry to interrupt, Nick.
Yeah.
But he's racing a McLaren this year, which Renault is powering.
Correct.
So
But
who cares if he slaps Honda in the face?
No. I'm just saying, I think it's interesting.
Right.
It's like an
Right.
interesting storyline.
It's
But
further.
How ugly was that breakup to lead to this? You
So
know,
now, The World Endurance Championship, and I looked this up, is actually the second largest racing sanctioning body. It really does. It goes Formula One, World Endurance, and then NASCAR, I think, was third. Now, it could be skewed because it was a European source, so I'm not going to say that's fact. But the fact of the matter is the World Endurance Championship is clearly a very big deal.
But the prototype class of World Endurance Championship is dying off. I think Toyota's almost the only ones left. You know, it's Audi left and Porsche is leaving. And
It's just an R&D thing for them now.
Well, then that actually makes a lot of sense because Toyota said that they want to have Fernando Alonso in the car in Suzuka for their home race. And clearly they have enough clout within the sanctioning body that they said, well, when that race is going on, Fernando actually has to be racing at Circuit de Americas on Formula One. So the World Endurance Championship actually changed the race date to the following week to have Fernando Alonso there. Now, they actually had a Japanese sport car series that was going to be racing, and they said, yeah, that's just going to be canceled because this is obviously a bigger event. And then there was something going on the week prior, so that race got absolutely canceled. And Jenson Button, Formula One racer, actually drives in that series, and he tweeted out that it's like pathetic that big of a schedule change and uproar and tickets and all these things could change because of one person. And I think it's just another fascinating milestone of how big of a deal Fernando Alonso still is. I mean,
I don't
that's
dislike
awesome.
him, but
No, but we're talking about someone who hasn't been on a podium in like 5 years, and he is still big of this big.
He
of a
needs
deal.
to read your book.
But yeah. So I think that's just a really, really fascinating storyline.
I wasn't kidding.
I guess.
How did I know you were? Now I'm
Yeah.
curious. I didn't follow the testing as closely as
Yeah.
I would have liked to. But what did the lap numbers stack up like?
Yeah, there's really no clear winner. There's really no one.
No, I'm
who's-
not looking for times, but who
Yeah.
got the most laps in? I mean, I'm
I
assuming
think
Ferrari
it was
had
between
to be,
Ferrari and Mercedes,
Yeah.
but everybody really did get in a lot of laps, except, again, unfortunately for McLaren. They seem to really have some problems, but, compared to all their other years, they did just
Scott
fine.
just walked out on the show. He was like,
He's
F
out.
this, open
He's
wheel.
like, oh, I'm done.
See, modifieds are terrible. Even Scott walks out on the
But, I know Daniel Ricciardo topped the timesheets once, and in the interview they said, do you think have a car to rival the Mercedes and the Ferrari? And he said, no one knows how fast their car really is because it's 20 degrees and we can't tune the car up.
Now but another question. Outside,
Yeah.
I mean, because they're also gathering data for performance and for reliability. There's a lot more going on than just practicing the car or setup.
Yeah.
So I have to ask. I mean, do you think they're sandbagging? I mean, somebody has to be, right? Or do you think they're going all out? Because can't they? They can test elsewhere. Secretly.
I guess. I mean, you're literally talking about Ferrari having, a racetrack in their backyard.
Exactly.
And you have Mercedes that pretty much owns Silverstone at this point.
Yeah.
So I understand exactly what you're saying, but can they sandbag to where they're, 2/10 within each other? I don't know. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't
to
think the
fool the other
driver
teams.
is sandbagging. If they're sandbagging, I think it would be the team detuning the car.
Okay, but
I think that would be the
it's
version of sandbag.
possible. But I mean, I'm just curious. Is there? I mean, luring the other teams into a false sense of security. But beyond that,
I mean, Ferrari was accused of doing that last year. Because if you remember,
Yeah.
Ferrari did have the number one car last year.
yeah,
We did.
We did.
I did. We just did. It's just the way it
that's
is.
why I introduced him as the representative of Ferrari. He goes, no, I'm not. And I understand why.
I'm an F1 analyst.
So that
gonna get
is a
deep
very
here, guys.
fascinating point, though. I wouldn't be surprised, but we actually haven't talked about the thing that's on everybody's mind so far, and the Halo. And it seems like everyone has just gotten used to it at this point because they've actually been, on and off the car in practice sessions for 2 years now. So it's really
Yeah.
not a new sight to anybody.
I still see some complaints, but it's just like the same people that are complaining about NASCAR stages. Get
All right.
over it.
At least the teams, we finally got to see how they're going to paint them, how they're going to do something. Like I know Ferrari and another team has a little tiny wing going on top of
Yeah.
it for extra downforce, and Mercedes has a very, very thick but round one. That's a new soundbite, which is pretty weird. But I think the coolest new feature on these 2018 cars is, I'm not being biased, but it honestly is on the Ferrari. I mean, the rear mirrors are air ducts that channel air into the engine. I mean,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Come on.
But here's it's
So
Formula
Italian.
One. Everybody remember that F duct thing?
Yes.
That was happening, and then all of a sudden, once it became kind of like, hey, I think they're doing this. Everybody had it all of a sudden.
Yes.
It's just everybody's gonna. If it works, everybody's gonna steal the idea.
And usually in Melbourne, you see the cars looking completely different than what they looked like in preseason testing. But the fascinating story going into Melbourne on March 25th is last year we got testing in Barcelona when it was cold out, which was really just testing reliability, and that was it. And then they went to Bahrain the following week, and they actually got to tune up their cars in the warm weather, in race day weather, see what they can actually do. Now they're back at Barcelona. Barcelona when it snowed last week and it could snow again this week. They're not going to Bahrain. So going into Australia will be the first time these cars are in a warm climate. Will be the first time that we actually get to see these engines, and race trim in qualifying trim. So
I'm going to do. I have two things. One is going to be a real quick local tie-in, and it's about everybody else, copying.
Mm-hmm.
Scott gets Kumhos on the factory stock, and then within a couple weeks, the entire division runs on Kumhos.
Yeah. As soon as someone finds an advantage.
Everybody was running Fusions and Goodyears, and then I show up with my Kumhos. And the funny part about me running the Kumhos was I found them on a junk car, and they just happened to work well. And then before I know it, everybody was doing what I was doing.
So what Ferrari
as soon as you find an advantage. Why not?
But
it's just so close. Racing is down to the thousandth of a second.
Now,
and when someone finds it, what are you going to do?
The big argument that I've been seeing, maybe this isn't the big argument, but it's an argument, is going from 4 engines to 3 engines.
Yeah.
What is your take? Because I was just reading an article where, what was the name? Toast? T-O-S-T was blaming Ferrari, and they were pissed.
Mm-hmm. If not Sean Todt, right?
I don't know.
You know what?
Toast sounds more American.
They cut down on engines as a cost cap, and I get it, to keep all the teams and not have one team run away. But the fact of the matter is, when you were allowed to change engines every session, you still had Ferrari at the top. You still had big teams at the top, and cost cap or not, it's still going to be Ferrari and Mercedes at the top.
It probably will be, but here's the thing. Are you worried? I mean, maybe not Ferrari, but are you worried about other teams with reliability issues and blowing motors?
Yeah, I think it's possible for everybody. I think it's possible for everybody.
But here's the thing. Are teams now going to miss races because they are either out of engines or they need to save an engine to get through the rest?
They wouldn't miss races. It would just be those ridiculous, 75 grid spot penalties.
It's like when somebody gets sentenced to 140 years in jail. It's like, we know you're not going to live to 140. They give you 40 spot grid penalties. There's 20 cars in the grid.
Exactly. And for the past 2 years, this has been a storyline, and it's been, what are we going to do to stop this from happening? And if anything, it's now they just made the problem worse. And I almost think it's to somehow bunch up and invert the field halfway through the season. I mean, halfway through the season, it's going to be a real talking point. And I probably sound a little crazy right now, but you wait till we're in a circuit of the Americas and everybody has grid spot penalties. What is the starting grid going to look like?
Well, I think we need to have more grid spots. I think. I mean, how many cars do we start? 22?
Yeah, 22.
I
think 24 has been the max. 24 is the highest they ever had.
I think it was 26.
No, 22.
I believe when you had.
Oh, you mean the max?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe when you had Haas. Well, I can't. Now I'm drawing a blank. It was Haas, Lotus, and HRT. I think when they all. No, maybe it wasn't Haas. It was HRT, Lotus, and somebody else. They all came in at the same time. I think it was 26.
So
now I'm curious.
While he searches that, I think Scott will probably side with me on this. I think there's not enough cars.
Yeah,
and I know. Look, I know it's prohibitively expensive to get an F1, even more so
$1 billion
than NASCAR.
a year.
No, it's not. Just SBK Racing to do it. They'll do it.
Fine, but
I think last year it came out that Mercedes spent $500 million on both cars. Well, 500 on
per
each car,
which
is $1 billion.
Yeah, and I believe it, and that may be kind of a problem.
And that's in travel costs. Mercedes has 10,000 employees on those Formula 1
they have
cars.
a championship.
That's 5,000 each. I'm not saying that 5,000 people go to the track, but back in Brackley, back in Maranello.
But they have a championship from last season. How much did Ferrari spend, and what do they have at the end of the year?
I'm sure that they spent just as close. I'm sure they did.
They have the Ferrari.
How many cars will start, though? I mean,
22.
Is there
22?
Huh?
22.
22. So if 26 show up before, don't qualify.
There is never really cars not qualifying.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
But
I know what you mean, like NHRA and NASCAR, but that doesn't happen.
But what if somebody? Because you saw Haas come out of nowhere, but they kind of filled a spot that was vacant.
I think the
what
most in recent times is 24, and then I think when Marussia dropped out is when it went down to 22 again.
But what if Red Bull, a company like Red Bull, where they have.
I think with Liberty Media in control, they have a bigger problem keeping what they have now than talking about gaining teams because they're doing a terrible job.
Wow, you really think so?
A year ago, you were bragging about how great Liberty Media was.
What's changed? They went too far. They just went too far. They did some cool things at first, and it has just gone
so
much
Nick,
too far.
let me ask you, what do you think?
Nick's right. It was 24. 24 was the max.
Shocking.
Sorry to question you.
No, it's all good.
Sit down.
When Ecclestone, again, I know he's more just a weird kind of public figure that's just out there and kind of zany at this point.
I love him.
Kind of.
When he
really is a genius
about F1 going electric.
Mm-hmm. I think it was
Boogie,
it was a
woogie,
joke.
woogie.
Well, no, I mean, it seemed serious.
I think he was kidding.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I once saw an interview with this guy once, and they were like, "Is the race in New Jersey happening?" And he was just like, "Yes, it's happening." And then they were like, "But a story came out saying that it's fact that it's not happening." He's like, "All right, it's not happening." Like he's just just there to make headlines, literally.
Yeah, but now what is your opinion? Because you already have Formula E, and you have realistically, we have all these manufacturers running and jumping over to Formula E because they can develop more, where they feel Formula One is too restrictive and maybe even too costly.
Both.
Do you think that maybe they need to do something or open up the rules?
Open up the rules. Reduce the cost cap, open up the rules. It's not going to change what we see now. We see Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, and McLaren at the top.
Do you
They're
ever
the
see
only names that can fight for a podium?
Let's-
And if the cost cap or not, they can still afford to race.
All right, now let's talk more than 5 years into the future. Let's talk 50 years. Do you see it going to electric? Because, I mean, I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find, gas,
Are we even going to have drivers in the car in 50 years? I mean, that's
Your
I don't
personal
know.
car,
We're
probably
definitely
not.
not going to have flaggers at the racetrack by then. That's
Honestly, Scott, I'm not 100% sure why in NASCAR and Formula One we actually have flaggers now.
There's no
Yeah,
point
it's
anymore.
Damn.
tradition. It
Yeah,
comes down to
it's-
tradition.
It comes down to tradition, exactly. And in Formula One, if you look, and MotoGP as well, they hold these pit boards off the pits like before they had radios, like the drivers are actually looking at that.
Now,
it's like, come on.
Well, I will say with the road courses, I mean, you do need maybe more eyes on the track because of the corners. So you may still need people like corner marshals, but not with actual flags anymore. Maybe just some buttons, right, Scott?
Right, buttons, lights. I mean, radio communication.
Yeah.
Flaggers are a thing of the past.
And if anything, I mean, the buttons being actually controlled by Charlie Whiting and the FIA, I mean, that's, as a driver, what I would look at to see when it's safety car or when it's green, not, some guy with a flag. Because, and
Yeah,
I'm not,
screw those
hold
guys.
on. I'm not even, this has nothing to do with NASCAR at all. I understand that they're
Listen
talented.
up, Warren.
I know that the NASCAR flaggers and they're qualified and trained. In Formula One, that is not the case. When they go to like a foreign country, it really seems like pick up
Hey,
any
do you want to
old-
work for Formula One for a day?
It really seems like
Screw
that.
those
Have you seen
corner
some of these
workers.
guys running on the track with
Yeah.
car, like no big deal?
Yeah.
I mean, like
Screw those corner
Sebastian
workers. and
Vettel has a
grid
famous
stewards
radio
and-
bite. He's like, we have a crazy Russian running on the track right now. I mean, they just grab people from I don't know where.
Well, we had in the Australian V8 supercars, there was
Yeah.
a bad wreck. I want to say it was 2 years ago at begins with a B.
Bathurst?
Yes, Bathurst, and corner marshals were injured.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in that form of racing, like SCCA events, it happens often because a lot of those guys volunteer as well.
Yeah, I think we would do a better job, honestly. Corner marshaling the Singapore Grand
Well,
Prix.
we can ask Scott. He's been a flagger and an announcer and a host. And what haven't you done, Scott?
All in the same day, I was all that.
So Nick, we saw Ferrari close the gap on Mercedes last year.
How's bragging camp going?
Now the question is, can the rest of the field do that? Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo said that they feel Red Bull significantly better than what they were a year ago. I feel like every year there's talk about Renault making leaps and bounds on where they were the year prior, and it never happens.
Correct.
Do you honestly think that there is a team outside of Mercedes and Ferrari that can contend this year?
No.
Not at all. No. That's surprising. And I would look at a device like the Halo, a late addition to the specs of the car, being a little bit of an equalizer aerodynamically, but it looks as though that may not be the case.
No, definitely not. And what's funny? I was wondering, would this slow down the cars a little bit? I mean, it's titanium. I think it's about like 10 pounds. It can actually withhold,
If that,
I think, like
yeah.
12 tons, which is insane.
Yeah.
And the team said they just shedded weight elsewhere. So they're still at the minimum weight, so it doesn't actually affect that. But talking about speed, which obviously everybody cares about, in testing with the detuned engine in like minus 20-degree weather, it's like ridiculously cold, they were only 2/10 off the Spanish pole time of last year. So, 2/10, that's nothing. By the time they're in P1, practice 1 of the Spanish Grand Prix, they're going to be miles ahead. So, they're going to be even faster.
I'm sorry. Sam just sent out a picture to us, and he's trying to break our stride, and it's indeed working.
End the show.
And it's a news story. It's a little news story. So with that, I think.
Well, anything coming up with before Eric cries? IndyCar.
Well, the IndyCar season is scheduled to kick off this Sunday in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I'm with my buddy Mayor of Shintown, Josh. I am Josh, Mayor of Shintown. I'm looking at you.
Oh, sorry.
I'm pumped.
Stop stealing my name.
And I'll tell you, I've been taking a look at a lot of the news and cycles that are coming out about IndyCar. This series has more momentum than I think any series has had in a long time. I mean,
More balloons.
No, there's a lot of hype about this new car. There's a lot of hype about how racy it's been. And here, if you don't believe it from the enthusiasts like myself, look at it from a business perspective. New sponsors, new teams, 22 full-time entries, already 30 entries confirmed for the Indy 500. Usually they're scratching and clawing to get to 30 by the time April rolls around. Connor Daly just announced his deal today. That's
because his amazing race ended early.
Well, that too. But with this new spec bodywork that is going to be on the new car, it seems as though it may have equaled things out on the competitive standpoint. Rahal has looked really good, and I mean the Rahal team of both Graham Rahal and Takuma Sato.
Steak and shake.
Fastest at Phoenix, fastest at Sebring, and the Chevrolet teams, which were really, pretty much, the Penske guys.
Penske.
And then, Scott Dixon is still the favorite to win the championship in the eyes of Las Vegas. I think this is going to be the most competitive year that IndyCar has had.
What's Will Power doing this year? He's my guy in the Indy series.
Yeah, he's
really.
And
Sorry
actually,
to hear that.
Will has been the biggest.
Just because I like his name, Will Power.
It's a power name. I agree.
That's what I'm exercising when I do this freaking juice cleanse.
Willpower.
Exactly. Will has been the biggest advocate of the series taking the step in this direction in which it has with the new car and new bodywork.
That guy's face makes me want to punch it.
I agree, Josh.
He wants less downforce, more drivability in the cars, and that's exactly what you're going to see. This may be one of those situations, though, where be careful what you wish for.
You want to know what? I'll believe IndyCar's on the up and up when they finally make a video game for it. Ayo.
Well, it's usually tied into other series like Forza or whatever.
Nope.
They had an IndyCar game like 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Guys, I think we should all try to go to the Pocono Indy race. I think it's August 19th on a Sunday.
Me and Eric Brennan have been there and done that, and we're down to do it again. Eric Brennan, these are his words. He said it was amazing.
I'll try not to be in the hospital this year.
Yeah, don't,
please.
Sorry, guys, I'll be in school.
Scott, last year's Pocono race.
RPM podcast August trip up to the IndyCar race at Pocono this year.
I think Scott's right, and you can get into the pits, and it's pretty. And you can walk up and talk to the drivers.
Nick Bearhug,
right?
Alexander Rossi.
Yes, Eric Brennan. He was the clutchest photographer. I mean, he was TMZ our ass. It was amazing.
I could just picture
more to your ass.
We could finally do that.
Although I don't know if you guys remember, and I'm sorry, Josh, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, every time I think of Rick and Morty, I think of that scene where they come to the front door, flipping everybody off. And I think that's and that just gets me in the mood to go to work in the morning.
Well, I could see. I just want to do that whole the Will Buxton, Michael Waltrip pit walk. I've been trying to get you to do that at Wall for I don't know how long. And I bring the recorder, we'll go talk to a driver, and you guys see Will Power is Eric Brennan from the RPM podcast. You want to try a hot dog?
Put this in your mouth.
Well, actually, let's break the news now, Sam. Let's just tell everybody, all right? I can't hold it in anymore. Me and Sam are going to the Canadian Grand Prix this year, so obviously we're going to do something for the RPM podcast, and we need the microphone.
That's not the closet that I thought. Anyway.
First of all,
I could have a line of girls out here.
Invite. Second of all, that's awesome.
You should come. You down, guys?
I got my passport. I'm ready.
Hell yeah.
But actually, Scott, back the IndyCar race Pocono, real quick, and everybody loves IndyCar. You may want to keep an eye out for this. If memory serves me right, I remember we were trying to. They shortened. They used to let you walk out on the pit lane.
Yeah.
Last year, you could only walk behind the pit wall
unless you knew like Mario Andretti.
Everybody was squeezed in when it came time for race time, like a pack of sardines. You had to walk sideways to get through certain areas, and then you have drivers passing on their painted up scooters and stuff. Apparently, one of the Penske wings was damaged. They believe by a fan passing by or hitting it or whacking it, and I think it might have been Will Power who went on to win that race. It caused a little bit of damage on the front wing, and it changed the downforce numbers for him, and that's why the car wasn't handling so well. So we had to come in for a change. And I'm wondering if that's going to affect the level of access when they go back to Pocono next year.
All 12 people at the track.
Really, I mean, do you really need to be down there? I mean, it's cool to see the cars and the drivers up close, I guess. But
Scott, it's the best bang for your buck. It's like $50, and you. I talked to Esteban Gutierrez, and he hung out with Alexander Rossi.
And we're literally watching Elio warm up his car, practice pit stops right there.
Eric knows the best bang for your buck. Trust me.
That three-way. Good time.
So I'm excited for the start of the IndyCar season. My buddy Alan Bestwick will be on the call with ESPN on Sunday.
Yay.
But won't we have never mind.
So Darryl Waltrip stopped using hair dye.
Yeah, I noticed
that.
that.
Over a month. What happened there?
I wanted to mention on the F1 side, Tatiana Calderon was promoted to be a Sauber test driver for 2018.
I sent that to Nick.
I'm actually into Carmen Jorda or whatever it is. Just followed her on Instagram today.
Well, a lot of people aren't, and I didn't put this in the show,
Why is
Doc,
that?
because it's a.
I'm not a big
Are they
Carmen
mad because
fan
she's
myself.
muy caliente?
No, they're mad about what she's saying.
What's she saying?
This goes back to our
I'll
women in
defend her.
racing
I'll defend her.
conversation.
Oh boy.
But Carmen Jorda, she let out another quote
I'll defend her.
that was pressworthy. According to her, she thinks that women racers should strive for something along the lines of Formula E because it is less difficult than Formula One. And that's something that offended many female racers across the board. Simona Di Silvestro chimed in. Pippa Mann chimed in. And a lot of male racers. Jensen Button actually came to
Who is she?
female racers' defense.
Jensen's like, he's left Formula One and now he's just like this guy who just butts into conversations that don't involve him to like create like a Twitter war.
Oh,
It's
she's
like,
cute.
He's got to relax. Right? I agree.
You want to? I like Carmen.
She's actually like
Yeah.
a model on the side as well.
I understand that.
Oh, I get it.
You like that?
Oh,
Funny.
I do like that.
Eric still didn't get it.
No, it went right over my head.
But she's also a model on the side. Like I think I saw her in like GQ or something. So pretty wild stuff. I think it's good. I think she gives publicity to the sport like Lewis Hamilton,
She
and they
races
go
go-karts.
into those Hollywood areas that other drivers just don't meet.
But is it really a Hollywood area, or is it just a hot? It's like a hot button thing to say, just to try to get some attention.
This is a very hot button thing to say. This is very hot.
I mean, I don't think.
button.
I think that racing is the only sport where you could kind of keep your expectations the same, whether you're male or female. There should be no reason why a female
as an
can't
official,
succeed in it.
as some guy who's going to lose his job in the next few years, they all look the same behind the helmet. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, in your eyes, but according to her, they don't. According to her, they should strive for something.
Well, I don't
less.
agree with that. My toughest competitor ever racing was actually a female. So I've never thought that before. It is obviously very equal in racing. And I agree. It's one of the only sports where it really is.
Well, the backlash from that story will continue to trickle down as the season approaches.
But I'm still going to back my girl on this. I mean, not on that comment. Everybody makes mistakes, but yeah.
Well, it's a
I feel like the White House
mistake she's been making.
I feel like the
she's
White
like
House
an
press
ambassador for
person
female
right now.
racing now.
Another quick note: Formula E made a little bit of news. They're going to use the entire Monaco circuit for 2019 with the next generation cars.
Why
They're
the hell?
going to be faster. The next generation will be faster. Why?
Because
it's Monaco. Who cares
there's
anyway?
just too much history there.
I think they
don't
do
want them to bring
deserve it. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, how they should be the opening act for Formula One, very similar how the Xfinity is the opening act for the Cup Series. I think it's great they're starting to use the full course.
I agree.
Why the hell are we still racing at Monaco? That thing is so 2000 and late.
Whoa.
Because I like seeing
I'll
the
have you
boat
know we finished 1-2 this year.
whiz by at 8 o'clock in the morning in America.
Scott's gonna rent a boat or
Did you
something
guys
for a
actually
week.
see? We locked out the front row this year and just pulled away. And Monaco was sick. But actually,
Again,
Nick, there was no we there.
Saying
You were
we.
sitting your fat ass on the couch.
I'm actually very thin.
That's his Michael Waltrip French impression. Oui, oui.
That's good. Is Carmen French? No, she's Spanish, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. She's very pretty though. Can we end this
One
damn
other
segment?
Scott, what do you got?
Well, yeah, one other thing before we get off the open wheel stuff. You said there's 30 teams confirmed for the Indy 500. When I watch the Indy 500, I like to see if there's any true American sprint car drivers enter, like how Brian Clausen used to do and Steve Kinzer used to do. Is there anybody like that on the entry list?
For the sprint car world, no. Sage Karam, who started his career in karting, Sam and I know, he's got a deal together with Ryan Reinbold Racing. Connor Daly announced his deal, but he went to Europe, came back over to the States, and that's
Great
where he's
race and
continue
just
on.
ruined it for him.
So as of right now, no. Hopefully,
But there's room for 3 more spots, so maybe we'll see somebody like that coming.
there'll be at least 3 more that'll come in, and there's rumors of there being maybe 35 to 36 entries. So we may be sending guys home for the first time in about 3 or 4 years. So that
Now, was Danica on that
Yeah.
30 list? Or she's on there already?
Yep, she's confirmed with Ed Carpenter Racing.
Yeah, she let that slip a little early, I remember.
Danica Double. Same
How
girl.
cool would you like to see like a Kyle Larson over there in Indy trying it?
I would
or
love
even
that. And I actually think it would be competitive.
So do I.
I don't think the high lane works at Indy.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see him to try it though.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
But here's the thing, and this I'll cycle this back to the Fernando Alonso talk. I spent a lot of time, and I'm going to give credit to another podcast I've listened to, the Dinner with Racers podcast. I just happened to start listening to them, and it's a couple of sports car drivers who literally travel the country, and they sit down, they have dinner with a couple of racers, and some of them are really good. Robin Miller's was one that I loved, and he talked about back in the day, guys like Foyt, and Parnelli Jones, and I think even Gordon Johncock was bouncing around from other racing series. It's so refreshing to see guys like Alonso willing to do that. Kurt Busch in 2014 willing to get in the Indy 500.
Finished sixth.
Kyle Larson wants to do it. Kyle Busch said he could have done it. He had a deal in place, and he was told no by somebody. So
thanks, Obama.
I like that. I want more of that.
I'm really surprised Kurt Busch hasn't gone back over there. He did very well for his first time.
That's because Chase Elliott's not over there. He can't wreck him.
Please.
What about Tony Stewart?
I think
he's too heavy. He's too big of a guy.
Let him sell his T-shirts. He's happy.
Yeah, we got so for the Indy 500.
Now here's another thing too. Is it even possible to do the double now? Because they always move the times around and stuff like that, and make it harder and harder for these guys to make it. Is there time to make it to the 2 races now?
Kurt Busch pulled it off in 2014, but it was close. And it seems like neither series is willing to move for the other. I think IndyCar used to start an hour earlier. The Cup race used to start an hour later, and there appears to be no wiggle room now on either side to try to help the other.
I think that just goes to IndyCar shooting themselves in the foot for the umpteenth time, and then NASCAR just kind of being full of themselves.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I don't think they're doing anything.
Just ran on Saturdays.
What's that?
What if IndyCar just ran on Saturdays?
But it's the art of running.
Yeah, but I love that triple
same
Sunday.
day.
I think that's the coolest day in motorsports. What do you have, Monaco in the morning, and the Indy 500 in the afternoon?
F1 should get moved to Saturday because who watches F1 in the States?
I didn't realize we were just talking about that day. I think that day is perfect then. I think that day is perfect. You have Monaco, Indy 500, Coke 600 that night.
I think it's the biggest day in motorsports.
Yeah, I agree with Scott 100%. My cousin put a wedding on that day, and I was not happy about it.
Yeah, I got a friend trying to get married that day. I'm like, what are you doing?
I know.
Actually, I got 2 friends. I got one friend this year, and I got another friend next year. And I'm like,
tell Tony to know his role.
Well, someone in this room had to go to a baptism for the Daytona 500.
Yeah, that's.
So what kind of idiot family does that?
Damn Catholics.
Now, Scott, how many races have you done in a single day?
I've done a few. I mean, that one time when I was running for the championships at Evergreen in the what was called Mountain Speedway there in the Enduros, and running for the championship at Wall Stadium, I actually raced at Evergreen and won a 100-lapper there. And we, with the same car, truck, trailer, everything, boogied back to Wall Stadium, missed the heat race, started dead last in this factory stock race and finished third. Wow. So that was pretty cool. I mean, just at Wall Stadium, that one night a couple of years ago, we had the triple races. And then when they gave us a dash for cash, so that was 4 features in one night right there.
Do you have enough fuel?
Yeah, we put fuel in it.
No, I mean, have you ever done multiple divisions in a single day, Scott? I know you've run a number of different series or divisions over the years. Have you ever done more than one in a day?
One crazy thing I did too is we were in Langley Speedway with the arch truck, and we only got like 1 or 2 practices in, and it rained out. I ran all the way back to Wall Stadium from Langley Speedway to drive Johnny Lors' modified. That's the closest I ever came to racing 2 divisions in one night.
So you kind of like to concentrate on one thing at a time for the most part.
You know what? There had been a time when I jumped in someone else's car and raced something else and ran 2 divisions, but I can't really remember offhand.
So
I would do it. I mean, what Jimmy Bullitt does at Turkey Derby, jumping back and forth is pretty exciting. But yeah, I do like concentrating on one thing.
I remember Paul Hartwig Jr. trying to run slingshots, champ carts, and TQs. I think was it AC. He was trying to run all 3 divisions down there, which that's just too much.
Yeah, it's too much. And if you pay attention to somebody doing like that, you stretch yourself thin. And I think that's why he loses his head sometimes, because he has too much going on. Sometimes he goes for quantity and not quality, and that kind of hurts him a little bit. And he does better when he concentrates on one thing,
Yeah, when he went down to just a slingshot, he did really well there. Mm-hmm. And then you see he puts all this effort into his kid's car, and his kid's just phenomenal.
I always tell people, if you run multiple divisions, it's a good time when everything goes good. When everything goes 100% good and everything goes as planned, it's a lot of fun. But once things start to have little problems here, little problems there, it really takes the fun out of it.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I don't have much to go into the local segment, but I will lead it off by saying happy birthday to my brother, my announcing colleague at Wall Stadium Speedway, Gary Larson. Gary, I love you. Happy birthday. You're the man. Also, we got Vinny Troya, who is opening up a iRacing league for anybody who wants to join. You could hit him up on Facebook, and that's all I got.
Well, tell us a little bit about your trip to Lincoln. You spent your birthday going out to Lincoln Speedway. That's a cool race, man. They have it kind of like in the middle of the winter. It's still cold out in Pennsylvania. You usually get snowed out there.
Was Abe there?
I did go out to that race one year, and it was a long time ago. And they had street stocks racing with the sprint cars that day. And I just remember sitting in the grandstands at Lincoln, and I think there was like 30 some street stocks there, and they were pulling out on the track for the feature. Every single one was a Camaro. There was 30 Camaros on the racetrack. I looked at my brother and I said, well, I guess the Camaro is the hot ticket at this racetrack, you know?
Yeah, it was my first time going. Joey Bailey invited me out there to celebrate my birthday a little bit, so he decided to we took the trip out there. About 3 hours worth of driving for 1 hour worth of racing. So all they had was 410 sprints.
Really? It was only one division?
Yeah, it was just like a warm up for them. You know, they put $4,000 on the line, try to get a couple people to come out in some cold weather and enjoy it. And I'll tell you, the crowd was amazing.
Yeah, they do pack them in there. I mean, that's central Pennsylvania. That's PA Posse territory for the sprint cars. They're big out there. Lincoln's a nice track. I think it's a good track for the sprint cars, super fast. I did notice some names on there, and Freddie Raymer was one of them. I'm very surprised he's still racing. I mean, he was racing when I was a kid, and it's pretty cool to see him still racing.
Yeah, it was. I'll tell you, it was a great show. Trying to remember the name of the guy that won. It seemed as though the track needs some time to weather it. Now, granted, it poured all day on Friday, so I was surprised they even kept everything going. But that's something that for sure we were kind of worried about them getting the race in at all, but it was a great trip. On the way home, we stopped. We actually got out of there early enough. We stopped at the Buffalo Wild Wings and hung out, watched the Xfinity race, and then that was our night. So it was a good time.
Now I see Scott put a few things in, and some we'll get to when we get Jimmy Blewett on, which should be coming up relatively soon. We're trying to work out schedules. I mean, Eric has probably.
Yeah, maybe when Jimmy gets back from Myrtle Beach, I did talk to him the other day at work, and he's just really hustling to get all his equipment together to go to Myrtle Beach and race. He does want to come on. Maybe as soon as he gets back from Myrtle Beach, he can come in and do a recap on that Tuesday.
We have 5 people on the show right now today, and I mean it's
Full
difficult
house.
enough to we need Sam in the state to get Nick to come down. Eric has the most unpredictable schedule imaginable. Sam has the anti-podcast school schedule, and Scott's just laid back. Oh, you guys are ready? All right, cool. Let me finish on the race car, and he's there. So,
well, that's because I have all this great equipment right at my house, sponsored by Eric Brennan.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm good to go whenever you want. And even we were talking about Justin Fontaine. He's going to make it Tuesday, so we're trying to maybe say let's do it Thursday. I was willing to do 2 shows this week.
We're going to work on that. We might. We're going to try to get him scheduled in, sort out that part of the schedule, and a number of other things. It gets hectic trying to organize this whole thing.
All I could say is our guest log is backed up.
I blame Eric for that.
And whoa. Think about it. We have NASCAR drivers coming on the show.
Oh, yeah. No, I have a meeting scheduled with in Arizona when I go to see my nephew with a gentleman who opened up a stats website based on NASCAR, and there was actually an article written about him in USA Today about NASCAR coming after him because of some of the things he was doing, and I kind of want to meet with him in person first and go over with it.
Right.
See who's going to pick up the bar tab, and then we'll take it. I'm just kidding, Andrew. I'm just messing around. But I love to get him on because his perspective of the sport is so calculated and analytical that I would love to hear his perspective on some things. So we're looking to get him on as well.
All right. Now I just want to add, Scott. I see it looks like you put in here for full containment seats are going to be mandatory in New Jersey.
Yeah. The word on the street is it's nothing official, but word on the street in New Jersey. 2019 must have full containment seats in your race cars. My personal little race team, our factory stocks, we switched over on our own last year. Mm-hmm. I did it with the Hans device. They weren't mandatory a while back. I got one. I got ahead of the curve. They are starting to get more affordable. I mean, Kirky has a real nice one for about $490.
Okay.
I think it's time. I mean, when I was a kid, my father raced with a fiberglass seat, and they outlawed them, and you had to go to an aluminum seat. We've been running that same aluminum seat for a very, very long time. Right. There is a better product out there in the full containment seat. It's been proven. I just think it's time everybody gets it. I know it's crazy the money we spend on safety equipment, but if there is something better out there and it's only a couple $100 more than what we already have, it's time to make the switch. And by them telling you in 2018, by 2019, you need a full containment seat. I think it's time, and I think it's a good move.
No, I'm not against it. It's a safety improvement. I'm all for it. Now, Scott, when did you switch over to a full containment seat?
Well, I ran one, but I made sure in both cars last year, both cars had full containment seats.
Okay. Well, because I know that you. Well, let's just say you're a lot thinner now.
Yeah.
And was that an issue changing that, or for you to fit that?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason why I switched. I went from a bigger seat to a smaller seat. So while I was switching seats, I bought a full containment seat.
Okay. All right, so you went right to a properly sized full containment.
Yeah, same thing with Nancy. When we put Nancy in the car, we had to take my bigger seat out, and she had to get a smaller seat for her. So I said, Nancy, just get a full containment. We're done with these non-full containment seats, and especially after my wreck up at Hudson. I just said we got to go full containment, and we did.
No, I'm all for it.
And when I say full containment, like I'm saying, Kirky makes a good one. Ultra Shield makes a good, affordable, short track full containment seat for about $500. I mean, we don't have to get carried away like the Cup guys with the super, super big headrest and the $3,000, LaJoy seats and the $5,000, $8,000 carbon fiber seats. We don't need anything like that. But we do need full containment now. I mean, it's time.
Now, from what we have, like what's in my car, sitting in a tent, not doing anything for years. It's an aluminum seat. You have, your holes and stuff where your belts are going to come through. It comes out a little bit for the sides, for your ribs.
Yeah,
and
rib supports.
I do have one of those more flimsy bolt-on headrest things.
When they mean full containment, they're basically talking about your shoulder supports on both sides. I had shoulder supports and head supports on my seat like that, the non-full containment seat on my right side. So my right side was fully contained, and I was good if I hit that way. But if you ever hit the wall driver's side, now you're not contained going with a left side impact. So they want a full containment with two shoulder supports on each side, and the headrest has to have support on both sides. That's what they mean by full containment. And even if you do have the older style aluminum seat, they have something out now called Safer Racer. For about $300, you can buy an attachment that bolts to those type seats, and it makes it a full containment seat.
Okay, so I mean that's another option, but for me, if you're going to spend the $300, you might as well just
buy the whole seat. Yeah, you might as well go up another $200 and get a whole brand new seat.
Can you get them on Amazon so I can get it with free shipping?
I'm sure you can. You can get anything on Amazon. Matter of fact, I think we got this equipment that Eric Brennan bought me on Amazon.
I'm an Amazon Prime member, and I love it.
This studio is pretty much brought to you by Amazon Prime at this point.
Yes.
Now, also, I saw you put in for the 2-year seatbelt rule in New Jersey. I mean, we've had that for a number of years now. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
You think it's too short?
Yeah, of course it's too short. I mean, I'm all for safety and everything, but that's just a money-making thing. I mean, I literally just took out my 2-year-old seatbelts to put in new seatbelts, and they're brand new. There's nothing wrong with the seatbelts I took out. I definitely think it could be extended to 5 years.
Sell on Amazon.
5 years. Yeah. Well, no, it's funny you say that. I did. I put them. I took my other seatbelts out. The seatbelts I use are the Simpson seatbelts that are set up for the Hans device. They're about $130. I do get a deal through Simpson, and a friend of mine has a Simpson deal, so I got them for about $100 a set. And I had to buy 2 sets because one for my car, one for Nancy's car.
Right.
As soon as we took the sets out, I put them on Facebook, and I sold them for $50 because they're still good in Pennsylvania, and New York, and surrounding areas. So I did ship some out. I do have one set left if anybody's looking for one, but I have already sold one set to a guy in Pennsylvania and shipped them out to him. The 2-year deal, it's crazy. It should be 5 years. There was nothing wrong with my belts. They weren't even dirty. There was no reason to take them out. But the one thing I did notice by getting a new set of belts, before they had a date of manufacture on them, they said when they were made. Mine were March of 2016. So now it's March 2018. They're expired. I ordered the same exact seat belts. Now they have an expiration date. Now it says they're good for June of 2020, and they're not good anymore. So now I'm wondering if this is going nationwide and not only in New Jersey.
Right. Well, I tend to agree with you on 2 years is a little bit too short. Now, here's the only difference is your car is pretty much garage kept or under a cover and, kept a lot more out of the elements than mine was, where mine would just sit in my parents' driveway or on the farm, and between the sunlight hitting it, and that will deteriorate the belts a little bit and other things like that. So, I mean, that might take away and shorten the life of them compared to how a lot of drivers, especially as you get to the higher tiers, with these modifieds when they're sitting on stands, tires are wrapped and put away.
I'm sorry.
Eric is giving me the weirdest look.
This is going to be weird. Josh has the nicest eyes out of anybody I've ever seen. Because he's talking and looking at me and making eye contact, and I'm like, his eyes are bluer than mine. It's like,
can I buy you dinner?
No, more like, can
you don't even
he
have
buy
to.
you dinner?
Sorry. Look at him. They're like bluish gray.
I know.
Hey, Scott.
See what happens there, Brendan, when you're sitting in the studio an hour and a half waiting for the other cast members to get here?
It starts spacing out.
Weary. So now you know how we feel,
Oh my goodness. That was good.
I think that'll wrap that up. I have a couple more questions, which are going to be I want to have when Jimmy Blewett is in the studio with us, as well as Scott, because I mean they're both winners and champions, unlike me. I have a Consi. That's it. Eric, what do you have?
You do have a Conti win, and that was Turkey Derby weekend, so that's something to be very, very proud of.
I don't think it qualifies for me to say that I won at Turkey Derby. It doesn't feel clean.
You won at Turkey Derby, Josh. Don't explain anything more than that. When someone says, "Have you ever won any race?" Say, "Yes, I won at Turkey Derby." And if they don't ask if it was a feature or anything, then just walk away with a smile on your face. You won at Turkey Derby. Love it.
That is one way. I don't know. It feels wrong, but yes, technically you're right. So I don't know. I'm going to leave it at that. Anybody else have anything they want to add before we wrap things up?
I think I'm good.
I'm behaving this weekend.
I'm done.
Any predictions about the Phoenix race this weekend? You think Kevin Harvick's going to make it 3 in a row?
I think it's highly likely. That is one of his best tracks.
Whoa! I got a question. Why is this pool league that we're doing here? Your mom's winning again. What the freak?
Wait, is it your mom or is that somebody else?
No, it's not Elliot this time.
Okay.
It is Polish racing or Team Polish.
Team Polish. Yeah.
What the freak?
She picked.
Do
Paul
I have to call the
Menard.
Russians on you again?
No, I'm telling you, she picked Paul Menard on her own. I'm not helping. If I was helping her, I wouldn't be like 20th.
Boring.
Bull.
Sorry.
I'm serious. And then
But didn't you say that she prints out the finishes and really
she's
studies
nuts.
it?
And now my dad's in it too. And he gave me 2 names. I'm like, Dad, these guys aren't even in the field. Like, you got to do your homework. So
Harry Gant's not here.
I forget who he threw out at me. But last year, when my mother won, I didn't get the money from everybody yet. Yeah. And I said to her, and I'm like, Ma, I didn't get paid for everybody. And I can't repeat exactly what she said, but she goes, I don't care. I want my money by the end of the week. And I'm like, what are you going to do about it? And she's like, she threatened my life. So I gave her the money.
Hold on. What the hell does that mean?
But, Scott, I think that Jimmy Johnson will win Phoenix.
Well, that was the next question. If Kevin Harvick doesn't win, do you think Chevy will finally break through and win, or Toyota and Ford will finally not win the race?
Jimmy Johnson.
I think Truex is going to get things figured out.
I got a feeling about Alex Bowman. He came so close that the last time that he ran in 2016.
Yeah, he led a lot of laps, didn't he? He
Got
won
the
the pole and
pole.
led laps.
Yeah, I want to see Bowman shine.
You know what's funny? Alex Bowman's car shines as much as Josh's eyes.
They do. It's almost the same shade of blue. It's
like this
crazy.
room.
Yes.
And this podcast.
We just
very
lost
blue.
control of this. All right. What have we learned today, Nick? As he made screeching sound.
Well, obviously, I learned that Josh has some fantastic eyes. But, I guess I kind of learned also about Johnson's slump because you just, reminded me of that. And I think it was, what was the exact statistic since the last time he won a race? I think it's 27 races
it's
which
over
is the
25.
longest of his career. That's insane. In the past, what was it, 3 races or something? He hasn't finished in the top 20?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's crazy. Yeah.
Scott, what'd you learn?
I learned Sam Ballard can be just as late as Eric Brennan to a show.
That's something to be proud of, Sam.
Philly.
Wear that in stride.
Philly special.
Sam, what'd you learn?
I learned today that Scott Riggleman has fans in the area that has bumper stickers. Gonna leave it at that.
We were freaking out this
we
morning,
saw
Scott.
Riggleman's bumper sticker on the Parkway
we were
today.
freaking out.
I learned that Eric Brennan likes to swallow seaweed. I learned
I'm cleansing.
Right, if you want to call it like that, whatever, man.
Sam, that's the place I'm taking you.
Right,
to
shut up, Nick.
show you.
no.
Yeah. So you
I
wait.
learned that Josh has pretty eyes that matches Eric Brennan's spirit. His spirit animal almost.
Yeah.
They
are really not. I'm not kidding. I wish that people, if you're YouTube does do the justice.
Our female audience is far too small for this to work in my favor.
I'm just saying.
All right, I'm done.
Eric, what'd you learn?
Oh man, I was mesmerized by your eyes. That was weird. I was like,
Sounds like a Luke Bryan
song. I'm also very tired, and I've been drinking nothing but raw natural juices for the last 24 hours.
You gotta try Orgain.
He's got the DTs.
So I have no caffeine and no alcohol in my system for the first time in about 3 years.
Beats the DTFs.
So, this is a problem. So that's all I got.
That's all you learned?
Yeah, my brain doesn't function.
Well, have I got a list for you? Today I learned that Scott jacked cars at Daytona.
Yeah, I know.
I
know. I should have said that as mine.
I learned that Eric wants to watch handicapped people race in a parking lot.
I said I would. Not that I want to, but if I stumbled upon it, I would stay and watch.
I learned that Eric hates when something leaves his mouth and he wants it back in.
Only when it's something stupid. And thankfully, I forgot what I said.
I learned that Eric thought Claire was going to turn around and do it.
There's a lot about me today.
It's so big, though.
Huge.
Nick is excited to be 8 centimeters longer.
In the cold.
Yeah.
In the cold.
Yeah.
In the cold.
Seinfeld.
Mercedes has a thick round one. Sam,
Mercedes is the name. It is the name of a person.
Sam thinks Jensen Button is hot, and Sam likes Carmen. It finally hit.
I'm not touching this one. You want to know what props for everyone who actually knows the inside of this joke? The pair of balls I have to make a joke like that on this podcast. You're welcome.
Oh my god,
Sam, it's good to have you back.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening. Please check out our website. Sam, what is it?
TheRPMPodcast.com. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/RPMPodcast or Racing Podcast NJ. Twitter handle RPMPodcast _ Instagram, The RPM Podcast. I just posted on Instagram. Tweet, Instagram us, Snap Nick Rendo, like us on Facebook, Patreon account. We're looking for sponsors, folks. Sponsor.
Yes.
There you go, Eric Brennan.
You're the best salesman that I've ever met, ever.
I try.
I can't do that. I can't. I can hardly host this show. I can hardly do anything. I'm useless.
All right.
Stop drinking that juice. Maybe you'll be useful.
2 more days.
Stop.
2 more days.
It's going to make you very, very cognitive. And 4, Eric Brennan, Josh Matthews, Sam Ballard, Scott Riggleman, and I'm Nick Rendo.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Go to wall.
Read Nick's book.